second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair entertain a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. I'm going to call this town council meeting to order at 7:07. Roll call by the clerk, please.
President McGee,
Here.
Vice President LaBoissoniere,
Yep.
Councilman Bacon,
Here.
Councilman Cody,
Here.
Councilmember Dixon,
Here.
Solicitor Nicholas Gorham,
Here.
Acting Town Manager Ed Wazika.
Here.
Okay, I ask if you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Town Sergeant, would you please kindly lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you remain standing, if you wished, for the invocation, Vice President will give the invocation.
Dear Lord, please look over these proceedings and help us arrive at civil and honest decisions, and help the folks of this town to try to come together during a difficult budget season. And we have a big week this week, and we pray that we can arrive at a good decision. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Now, Sergeant, if you would give the emergency evacuation plan, please. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is President's comments. First of all, I want to say good evening and thank you for attending our town council meeting. Just wanted to let taxpayers know that contrary to certain special interest groups that we do that to condemn every move of the council and continually post misinformation, the town manager and the council leadership have been in discussion with the town of West Greenwich to purchase approximately 25% of our capacity at the municipal sewer treatment plant. This would significantly reduce the town's liability at the sewer plant. Talks are ongoing, and hopefully we would be able to finalize an agreement in the near future. We are also going to discuss the interest rate that is to be charged to the homeowners on the sewer assessment. When I first came on the council, the interest rate was 8%, and the council voted to bring it down to 6% on the advice of our former finance director. Now that we are beginning to head in the right direction, I think that we should drop the interest rate to whatever the town is charged, plus 1.25 to 1.5 to cover administration costs. This will have a negative effect on the sewer fund, but I think it's time. The town is diligently working to try to solve the issues that have been with us for 25 to 30 years. We will approach the situation with level heads and do what's best. We won't solve it on social media. It won't be solved overnight, but we will get through this. The next issue on is the budget. I am voting yes on the budget. The taxpayers can vote any way they want. Just get out and vote. I can't stress it enough that everyone knows the ramifications of the vote. So don't let 8% of eligible voters make the decisions for the entire town. The council will do whatever the people vote for. Just please get out and vote. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, approval of the town council minutes. But we're going to ask that we table May 22nd, as they were not ready for our package this particular month. That was the long meeting we had, and they weren't ready. So we'll approve them the next meeting we have. So I look for a motion to approve the May 28th council meeting minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Well, first of all, is there any discussion? Any comments from any council members? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the financial report presented by the finance director. John, thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'll try to make this quick again. It seems like there's a lot of people in here kind of anxious and chomping at the bit to move along. This is the April update. So we're already working on May, obviously with the budget season, and it's kind of got delayed a little bit. So we're already working on May. There we go. So same thing that we always do, just remember where we are in the budget season, about 83% is what we're looking for to expenditures. Did a little bit of an adjustment from last month to this month to show exactly where we stand as far as received budget from last month to this month. Just more changes to internal documentations that show the 83%. Again, we're right on track on this one. May is the major collection period, as that's where you collect most of the last quarter. So this pumps up quite significantly next month. So all the numbers are pretty much right in line with what you would expect. Again, town hall, the numbers are pretty close. Obviously, you can see the solicitor, the town manager budget is very low because we are right now have an interim who's only taking the stipend. So that's why you see so much lower as far as what's to budget. Everything else here pretty much in line as far as expenses. Board of Assessment review, there's a large coming up in the next month with the last meetings.
John,
Yes, sir.
do you expect with the upcoming all-day referendum for the second time around that the Board of Canvassers is going to be over budget?
I believe they're going to be slightly over budget, but because we did have some other expenses that came out. However, part of this package is the moving over of funds into contingency to help fund things of that nature that we couldn't plan for, or
And-
that weren't planned for, I should
And
say.
I don't know if you can answer this or not being a representative of the Board of Canvassers, but every time we go to an all-day referendum, what's the approximate cost of that?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. I wish I could, but I can't tell you that. Off the top of my head, when we do a referendum, she was mentioning a couple $1,000s in rental equipment. I want to say something in the vicinity of $3,000. The Board of Canvassers is a very small budget overall, so $3,000 is pretty significant for that budget.
Yep.
I just can't tell you what the numbers are off the top of my head. I wish I could, but about $3,000 is
That's
what
okay.
it's populating.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Cody, those costs are somewhere in the range of about $10,000 to $12,000
Overall.
on their piece because of the employees that have to be brought in and all of the aspects of it, not counting the cost that the town, the other costs that are incurred as well, the advertisements and mailings and any of those, but just Board of Canvassers is about.
Are we having to rent those machines from the Board of Elections at the state of Rhode
No,
Island?
no, they bring them in. We
They
do
bring
have to
them in.
pay for the budget, for the ballots, though. And the ballots are 30 cents apiece, and we have to get the numbers produced that we think will show up, which usually means we have to go higher than what we actually get.
Okay.
I'll go
thank you.
double check whatever that number was. She was mentioning something on the order of renting, maybe it was space or something. I don't remember. but
Some of the
it's-
locations require a
Again,
cost.
that was a little bit ago, so probably shouldn't have given you the number, but.
Thank you.
Let's see where we are. So for the police budget, it is a little bit higher. Again, but overall, their budgets are pretty close to in line. But the overall expenditures are just barely over the 83.3%. I know that they are looking at every single line item as far as cutting expenses and making sure that they get to the very end. And so next month, it will be a lot closer, but it's pretty close to in line. And I'm sure the colonel is very much aware of this, and he tracks it every single day. Moving on. Again, you saw the snow removals all the way at 99%. That was in the budget's all overtime, so it was fully expended. Everything else overall for the total budget on this is 78% for Department of Public Works. The engineering, again, is behind, as Mr. Wazika explained last time, that they bill in the past month, so you're going to see the next contract come forward, which is around 19,000. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head again. It's been a very, very, very long couple weeks, so I'm going to refrain from saying exact numbers. But they get billed behind in the rears. So you're going to see that pop up a little bit closer to the 83%. Let's see, planning zoning, again, generally right in line, actually doing pretty well over here. They do have a little bit of a pop in expenses coming up for some advertisements this month as well. So again, doing pretty well for them. Same thing again, public service. This is just all the public library, human resources. They're all below the 80% mark, so they're all doing very well according to their budgets. Nothing of note. Again, these are the things that we're looking at doing now. So when I came on board here, I think one of the one statements that was made to me was sort of creative accounting. I've just sort of taken that to be good accounting and cleaning up some of these old accounts that just sort of kind of got left by the wayside. I noticed a lot of these accounts, which we'll get talking about in a little bit, sort of had an inflection point around new financial managers coming in. So there's some inflection sort of where they could have gotten taken care of in the past that sort of just carried forward. State reporting, we're working on that. And so what I made all the financial leaders do across all the department heads, I wanted each one of them to do a project for me, sort of look at expenses that could be done better. So for example, planning and zoning, we talked about this before. One of my agenda items were to look at the stock that we have, the assets that we have. DPW, I'm suggesting things like rolling stock. Is there a way to share vehicles, things of that nature? So I want every one of my departments to look at that, plus also look at sort of fees that they may charge for some services. Is it enough to cover expenses? Just sort of, I'm trying to get the ball rolling to figure out how we can operate more efficiently and effectively. So the other big thing that's taking up all my time, essentially every little bit at a time that I have, is the transition of the sewer fund to an accrual. It's 30 years in the making. I don't understand why it wasn't done in the past, but it's a recommendation that the Attorney General put forward. It's
Auditor General.
Auditor General, yeah, my bad. The Auditor General put forward. It's quite exhausting, but my goal is to have this all done for accrual method into transition into this next fiscal year. So that way we can say exactly where we are, how much debt we owe, where our receivables are, who owes us where, when, and why. So that's quite an undertaking, and I'm trying to get this all done by the end of this month. So that's where I'm at now, and made significant headway this past week. There's a lot more work to do. I'm going to be pushing all the way to the end. So that's where I stand. Any questions?
John, I appreciate the way you do this. It makes it really easy to understand for us, and it's simplified and broken down and good by department. So I don't have any questions. Does anybody on the council have any? Absolutely.
Thank you for this detailed work, and I appreciate all the work you're going to try to get done by the end of the month. It's a daunting task. I know you can do it, but don't kill yourself. I do have a question on page 21 of our packet 166. It talks about the collection rates for real estate taxes, and I noticed there was a difference in percentages, and I wonder if you could just clarify this for us.
Absolutely. That's a good question. I noticed an internal, so the way that the reporting works that led up to all my previous reporting, they took into account transfers between departments. It's just one added cell above to everything else, and so when I see my entire list of revenues, it was automatically calculated at the bottom. That's not the case. It should not be included into the total revenues that I'm looking at as far as, or collections that we're looking at. So I backed that out to be actuals to real estate and all the other pieces of collectibles that we have. So this is the true, checked this quite intently, and I realized the mistake that it was in the past. So this is the correct going forward.
So does this mean we're doing a better job at collecting?
The collections are really good. The collector themselves, Monique, is very good. Collections we've done pretty well this year. There's been some prior years that we've collected that we weren't. I would say that we've been going after for a little bit. One case in point is there was the post office that hadn't been paid, and I went after them to make sure that they paid, things of that nature. So I've been jumping in with the collections office in order to get older collectibles. Also with that is the new third-party vendor that we have, that they're doing a fantastic job as well. So couple everything together, our rates are pretty high, above, looking right now to tracking above the 99% rate, which is fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you, John. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, then that'll be it. Thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next item. Madam Clerk, item C1, if you'd be so kind.
Discussion of amendment to Coventry Sewer Ordinance, Section 191-14H, regarding reduction of interest rate charged by town for financing of sewer assessment by customers. Note, this is for discussion only. Formal written amendment with notice and public hearing will be necessary for actual amendment.
All right, thank you. We just put this on the agenda just so the council members can discuss it. It's on.
Yeah, move it a little closer.
Usually I have a pretty big mouth, so, all right. We just put this on the agenda so we can have a discussion about it. As I mentioned in my president's comments, we are slowly heading in the right direction, and I think it's time. We wanted to drop the interest rates even lower, but with the condition that the sewer fund was in, we didn't want to have that much of a negative impact on the sewer fund. It still will have a negative impact, but I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think the taxpayers deserve it. We're not, that was my case when I first came on the council, it was 8%, which was ridiculous, and we got it down to 6%. We're not in the business trying to make money on the taxpayers. It's bad enough they're burdened with the assessment, and so that's always been our contention right along, but we had to make sure that it wasn't going to bankrupt the sewer fund. So, I mean, does anybody have any comments, any discussion? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I don't know, I'm going to assume that I either understood it wrong or you worded it wrong in your president's comments, and maybe I'm completely wrong in what I heard or what you meant. I would recommend that the new ordinance change read no more than 0.5% in interest above what is being charged for the loan. Not 1 1/4 or 1.5% above. And I think you read it wrong.
No, I did read it 1 1/4, because I was just going by it. Now, this is all for discussion. I was going by what Warwick charges, and I don't know.
Okay, well, Mr. President, not to step on anybody's toes, so please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but the night that the Auditor General was at our meeting, I specifically asked the Auditor General, Mr. Hoyle, if he thought that a 0.5% interest rate for administrative fees on top of what the town of Coventry is paying to borrow the money would be acceptable. He stated not only would it be acceptable, but it is common practice to not go above 0.5% in interest to the taxpayer over what the town is paying on the loan. And I think 0.5% is enough for the town to get to administer those loans. I would also suggest that anyone in the town of Coventry who is paying more than that on a current sewer assessment that they have financed through the town of Coventry should be allowed to, at no cost to them, refinance their loan at the lower interest rate, so they're no longer paying 6%, so they're only paying the 0.5% that anybody who finances moving forward is paying. So everything is across the board, even and fair to all of the taxpayers.
And that's what the exact reason why we wanted, just to discuss this. I'm not opposed. I haven't had a conversation with our finance department to find out what actual cost would incur to us to manage these accounts. I really haven't. So, I mean, if we discuss it with the finance director and the town manager.
We've actually gone back and looked at all of this and what the cost would actually be to the town. Doing it, we would make the recommendation, and we'll begin the process of redoing the ordinance for the next meeting, but it would be, the new rate would take effect, and it would affect everybody, not just anybody new going forward. The cost to the town to do that, to bring it down to a 0.5 over, and this is ballpark, because the problem is we have 12 different bonds at all different tax rates that we're going to have to go back in and adjust. But we're looking at about an $80,000 reduction in the funds coming in from the interest by reducing it down to a half point. As I said, we've got 12 different bonds that range from about 1.3% to the high is 4.25. Some of these bonds, most of these bonds also have a fluctuating rate that will change during the course of the lifetime of the bonds. So what we'll be proposing is that we do a weighted average, and every year we will redo that average based on the current amount and the current interest rates on each of those bonds. It'll take a little bit more work to do, but our system doesn't allow to do individual interest rates on each group of properties that are under each of the projects. So the fair way to do it, and not to be taking advantage of anyone, is to average it, a weighted average based on the total amount of bonded indebtedness, and work it from there so we come up with a fair and equitable, and then add the 0.5 or the 50 basis points, as John likes to refer to, on top of that to get that final number.
And John seems to think that 50 basis points of 0.5.
Well, we are moving forward. We've made some substantial changes in the whole program. We've got more coming down. We are projected to be in the black operationally for the FY20. Based on this, there should be no need to borrow any further money from the reserve fund. So yes, we should be able to handle this. John and I have spoken, and it's part of where we need to go, and it's the appropriate thing to do for the taxpayers of the town.
I thought the timing was right, especially with the opportunity with Greenwich interested in purchasing them. The timing was, everything was right, so I felt it was the right time.
Like I said, we're moving into the right direction, and it's time to assist, and not be mandated by the state to reduce this amount down. We need to do it ourselves, and we need to do what's right for the taxpayers.
Well, listen, I just want to state for the record that while I was campaigning for this office, I spoke to a lot of people about this, and I have maintained right along that the interest rate was too high. When I was on the council the last time, I thought the interest rate was too high. We were able to get enough consensus on the council to lower it from 8% down to 6%, which was an accomplishment back then. But I think the taxpayers have been perfectly clear about what they expect from this body and their representatives at this level in the town of Coventry. And it is not to generate revenue off the backs of our taxpayers over and above the taxes that they already pay to the town of Coventry. I think that they understand we need to get something to finance the administrative part of those loans, and I firmly believe and will not support a sewer ordinance change that says anything but no more than 0.5% over the figure that the town is borrowing the money for. Whatever the average is, that's what the new ordinance has to say, I believe, to satisfy the taxpayers of this town.
With that in mind, we've got two firms coming in on Friday that we're interviewing. They're doing the presentation for the sewer rate study. So we're going to be looking at those, and we will have that in front of the council in the very near future about engaging the chosen company to do it. We did not do it out to an RFP. We've been actually looking at other different communities, who they're using, who we found is the best, who's had experience in Rhode Island, and not basing it solely on an RFP and going on the lowest common denominator. We found that always isn't the way. It is a professional service, so we're not obligated. We're not in violation of the charter or purchasing by engaging that without an RFP. So we will be presenting both proposals to the council and then making a decision on which we feel is the better, and then you'll decide where we want to go with that.
Well, listen, I think we all know how I feel. I'm going to shut my mouth and let other council members have their say here, but for the record, I wanted everyone on the council and all the administrators in the town of Coventry to know how I feel about it personally, and if we're going to move forward, we have to move forward in a positive way to bring the taxpayers back on board and to keep, not get, because they have been involved, to keep the taxpayers involved in changing the ordinances, moving forward, so we change them to something that the taxpayers can live with, and we can continue to move the town of Coventry forward. So, Mr. President, thank you for the time. I appreciate it, and anybody else is welcome to it.
Your point is well taken, and I agree with you. That's why we wanted to have this discussion and see what the view was for most of the council members. The town manager and every department, we're working diligently to try to do what we can. There are some changes that are coming. We're working towards making this situation work, and it doesn't happen overnight, like I stated in my president's comments. So is there any other comments anybody has from the council?
No, I just think also going forward, when that rate study comes, because there is a Senate and House bill, and I think the Senate bill passed, let's see, 35-0. So could we please just have those bills also in our packets regarding
The
interest?
You're talking about the interest rate.
Yes.
I will have them in your next packets for you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Not all ordinances come to the council for a vote. Will this ordinance that has to do with the interest come to the council for a vote?
It has to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It has
that
to.
one has to.
It has to be advertised. That's why we put this on for tonight, so we can begin the process.
Okay.
We'll have the first reading at the next meeting, and then whatever changes you want to make, but we need a couple of meetings to get the process through, but you will be voting on it and making the determination, not myself.
I mean, I definitely support a
question.
reduction in the interest. I definitely support a reduction in the interest rate, but I do want to wait till our finance director and you come with recommendations to us.
Thank you.
That's coming.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may?
Yes, absolutely.
My question, Mr. Wazika, is that with the rate study that we're doing, okay, and for clarity, we have a position in this budget for a sewer administrator, if you will?
We have some funds set aside in the sewer budget to begin or to hire someone at the halfway point of the fiscal year. So in January, there are funds in there. So yeah, we've got some in there, and that's something we're working towards. We've got, for the first time, a budget of actual expenditures and expected revenues and a legitimate approach to where it belongs being
Because I
done.
think that would be important as far as moving forward with this ordinance, as well as to know whether the costs of a new administrator were going to be covered by the usage fees for the most part, and whatever little percentage that we put on for interest.
Well, that's why we need all of
just
these.
to put an arbitrary number on.
Exactly.
It's not going to work going forward. So we want to make sure that.
That's why we need to do this now, so when we get that started, we'll have the true cost associated with that, and that's where we're moving to.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And if there's no other questions or comments,
No, not done.
okay,
I'm done talking about the interest rate part of it.
well, that's what we're discussing.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Okay. That's what we're talking about. All right. If there's no other questions, it was, like I said, for discussion only. Mr. Manager, I believe there's D1 you wanted to...
That is going to be tabled because this is it was meant to be part of a larger presentation with the building committee coming forward as well, but with other issues going on, I didn't want to bring that up this week. And I forgot to pull this off when we were doing the budget session. I mean, the agenda
Do we
session,
need a
so.
motion to table that, or we just table it, Mr.
You-
Solicitor? Do we need a motion to table it, or we just table it?
I'm trying to remember our practice is to simply just
Yeah, I
take
think
we
Make
just
a
table it.
action.
motion to table
Second.
item.
Just to cover us. All right, so we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
D1.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item is tabled. Madam Clerk, item D2, please.
Can we move them up? Can we move Second Amendment up?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did want to do that, didn't we? Yeah.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
if it's appropriate at this time, I would like to make a motion to move F3 up to this point of the meeting, so we can relieve some of these people who were so kind to show up in their yellow shirts we can relieve them of their attendance if they were only here for one reason, and I believe most of them are.
I'm sure they all want to stay and watch the council meeting. So we have a motion to bring it up. We have a second?
I'll second
We
it.
have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we'll bring up, Madam Clerk, if you would read item
F3.
F3.
Resolution declaring the Town of Coventry a Second Amendment sanctuary town.
This motion was brought at my request, has some of the other rural towns in the state of Rhode Island have also moved toward making a sanctuary city. This motion is actually just sending a message to the governor and to the state legislators that gun control doesn't work, all right? We want to, I'm a firm believer of the Second Amendment and our constitutional right to bear arms. And I thought it would be a controversial issue, but we're actually receiving a lot of positive thoughts about it. We're all appalled at the mass casualties that are happening. It's a travesty, but guns don't kill people. People kill people. I think we need to attack the core of the problem, and gun control, in my eyes, is not the answer. I'm asking that we just present this to the state legislator and the governor and just let them know that Coventry is not in favor of any gun control that will limit our constitutional right to bear arms. It seems these days that illegal aliens have more rights than we do as law-abiding gun owners, and I don't believe that it's right. I'm a believer of the Second Amendment. This is open for discussion amongst the council members. If anybody has any comments, now would be the time. Does anybody, no, this is just for the council, we're not having public comments. Does anybody have an opinion or anything to say about it?
Well, personally, I'm happy that we're able to bring this forward because I have gotten a lot of positive emails and in support of this. And I know a lot of our sister towns have approved a resolution of this nature, nearly that same type. So I'm very happy we brought this forward.
Well, Mr. President, if I may, I'm glad that you saw fit to put this on the agenda. Me and you have discussed this privately in the past, and I have to tell you that not only am I a strong supporter of our Second Amendment rights, but I have enough knowledge about gun safety and gun control to know that what the governor is presenting to the state of Rhode Island as gun control doesn't work. If you're a criminal sitting in this room and you've never been in the town of Coventry before, if you walked out now, you could walk back in an hour or less and have an illegal gun in your possession. Because gun control doesn't work for criminals. They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to do harm. They're going to find a way to obtain the weapons that they want to use to do that harm. All the gun control that the governor is presenting does is limits legal gun owners from lawfully and rightfully protecting themselves, their property, and their families. And we can't sit back and allow that to take place. Not in the town of Coventry, not in the state of Rhode Island, and not anywhere in this country. Our forefathers wrote the Constitution with the future in mind. And under that Constitution, we have a right to bear arms to protect ourselves against tyrannical governments. If you don't think that that's happening in the United States, I want to know what rock you've been living under, and is there any more units available? With that being said, I would like to thank leadership for putting this on the council and giving the rest of the council members an opportunity to show support for our Second Amendment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other council? Does anybody have any other comments?
Yes.
Yep.
This was new to me when I received it in my packet, so I did do as much research as I could. I reached out and talked to a lot of people. The document, as I read it, is not legally binding, but it just basically says that a group of people, Coventry residents, want to be heard when the state is considering any type of gun legislation whatsoever. So I think it's reasonable to support this. I also want to mention that I did receive a call today and many emails from people, all of which were in support of this resolution. I would also mention, to my amazement and my disappointment, in a way, I received more emails about this subject than I did about the budget. And it just means that maybe some people are better organized than others, I don't know. Thank you, Kyle. But seriously, I mean, that's a serious problem, too, when you receive more emails about a particular subject, which is, of course, important to people, but you don't receive as many emails about the budget, which is very, very important to us also. I did reach out to Colonel McDonald because I was interested in his comments on this, and I asked his permission if I might read the email that he sent me. So I'm going to ask that this be put into the record, and I'm going to read his comments to you, because I asked his opinion about this resolution, and this is what he said. Mrs. Dixon, it's 3 paragraphs, so please bear with me, but I think it's important. Mrs. Dixon, the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association has discussed this at length. A generally agreed perspective is that law enforcement should follow the laws as written without passion or prejudice. Whatever the political topic du jour, whether it be immigration, Second Amendment, guns, marijuana, whether it is the state deciding to resist federal law or the cities, towns that are resisting state and/or federal law enforcement should remain neutral parties away from the fray. Political understanding is not partisanship. As law enforcement professionals, I believe we need to firmly resist the temptation to be drawn into taking sides where groups look to use the police to further their own causes. My opinion is that police leaders should delimit our role to providing sound, unfeathered, professional advice on the status and potential impacts of any current or proposed changes to law. Once codified into law, we follow the law as written. In my opinion, constitutional questions are best left to the high courts, not for the police to make determinations on unconstitutional laws. That said, I believe the resolution gives guidance to the police to exercise sound discretion. I have no issue with this language, and I do not believe it will change how we will conduct our police operations. We will be executing on the laws as written. So I think that's a pretty clear statement by the police chief, and I did want to read that into the record because I received all emails in favor of the resolution, nothing against it. I'm sure there are people out there who may be against it. They haven't been vocal, but I did want to get the police chief's comments on this.
Well, thank you very much for bringing that. And once again, this is strictly sending a message to the state and to the governor that we are opposed to any gun change in laws, So, with that being said,
I'd like to make, if I could have the pleasure and the privilege of being able to make a motion for approval.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I think, would we have a number of seconds, I think?
Okay,
Probably
so-
3,
Yes.
3 seconds on that.
Once enough.
One's enough, one's enough, but
Debbie,
for,
a second, so we'll
but
take
for,
Debbie's second.
let's say we go.
And then, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Coventry is now a sanctuary city. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, okay.
Gentlemen, please, and ladies, please do stay the rest of the meeting as it's exciting.
Mr.
Not
President,
gonna happen,
Mr.
Ann.
President, can we take a couple of
That's
minutes
Yeah,
and
actually, we'll take
allow...
a couple-minute break so everybody get
That's
one so we
right.
can leave. and-
You are our sunshine.
Yeah. Okay, if we can call this meeting back to order. Madam Clerk, would you be so kind as to read D2, please?
Discussion from Finance Director on closing/roll capital accounts that are unspent as provided in Charter 8.18 and move into revolving capital account.
Okay, so on that, you want to explain this for us, please?
Absolutely. So, again, back to what I was saying before, one of the things I was focused on was cleaning up a lot of these accounts. So the accounts that you'll see when it comes to the capital ones, by the charter, they're supposed to be rolled after every 3 years. So in that letter, you'll see these dating back pretty significantly to, I believe, 2013 off the top of my head. So what I did was I took all these capital accounts and put it in the letter so that each one of these line items going forward and creating a new capital fund account and essentially, as what was discussed in the budget as well, having that capital surplus fund so that way we could fund capital going forward. So essentially this takes one fell swoop, cleans out all the old accounts, starts fresh and anew, and then every single one of those line items that we have going forward, I can put a designation for each fiscal year. So I know when they were designated, when they should be rolled forward, and when they should be closed out. It just makes this much cleaner, quicker, and as far as the capital progress that we're looking forward in this town, I think it serves all those needs. So that's specifically on those capital funds.
Okay, Madam President, you have a comment?
Yeah, my question runs, that once we reappropriate it, does it start the clock on the 3 years again, or?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
All right.
The council is fully able to reappropriate capital funds forward. I was reading, I crafted the resolution according to previous resolutions when they closed out old accounts a couple years back by Mr. Tebow, and the council could re-specify for lines. So for the more recent accounts, I kept the designation as the same. That way, everything is on the same page going forward rather than...
So in other words, all of the items that are presently there will have 3 year, in other words, we're
3 years
still on the
from
same
now.
timetable.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dixon, you have a comment?
This is new to me, John, so please help me out. Does
Sure.
this mean that the money in these accounts will go into one account called the Capital Improvement Fund?
That's correct. So the way that
Okay.
the accounting is set up are special capital funds where council says we're going to we approve spending of this amount of money and can roll forward until it's expended. So for example, the annex roof or the fire alarms, things of that nature. And that can transition for future years. So what I set up for this fund is the exact same thing. Council is appropriating a certain amount of funds going forward. The difference in this fund, well, I would say the difference. Last year's capital fund had a capital surplus line, and it was only $10,000. So what you'll see in this new capital surplus line is a significant bump in that, where it took all those unspent monies that have been spent down, but they're the residuals remaining, and put it in and sort of put them into a capital surplus. So that way, when things come up, like heaven forbid a car crashes through a wall. Let's just use that for just an example. We need to rebuild that. Yes, we could get insurance, obviously, to do that, but just as a general example, doors fall off the hinges, we got to put new doors up. I don't know, pick something. That you have a capital surplus fund that we can actually appropriate to and spend to fixing our buildings. So that's what that fund is, as well as for the budget.
So is this the same account into which the $200,000 that the manager has recommended to the council,
Correct.
which we approved
Yep.
for the budget, which is in the referendum?
Correct.
We've got $200,000 that is supposed to go into this capital improvement fund. So this will be mingled with this other money?
Correct. So what would end up happening is Assuming that we'll just assume that the budget passes and that $200,000, the voters say $200,000 can go into capital. That $200,000 can go into this fund. Now, it could go directly into capital surplus, but I believe what has been discussed is it goes specifically to the school. So I can put that into its own line item. As you saw those line items, I can say $200,000 capital or school capital improvement, fiscal year 2020. And that way, that $200,000 was transferred directly out, put into there. It can only be spent for that, and it's directly to capital improvements for the school.
So the $200,000 is going to be for the school?
Correct.
This particular year, do they have to spend it in this fiscal year
No,
coming
ma'am.
up? No, okay.
No, ma'am.
Now, what about some of this other money that's going to be in the fund? Can that be used for the school, or is it going to be
Potentially, it could
designated
be
for
used
other
for the
things?
school. Potentially, it could be used for the school for the capital surplus. Unless otherwise annotated in those special line items, then the capital surplus line itself could be used for school.
But we also have capital.
We also have
needs on the
capital
municipal
needs of the
side.
municipal side as well, but it's for town, like the town of Coventry,
Town-wide.
all departments.
So one last question.
Sure.
So how does the council approve the money, how is the council going to approve what money will be used for what? In other words, will we receive a recommendation from you that says, we need to spend $50,000 from this fund to fix the wall through which a car went? Or we need to approve $100,000 because the school department has asked for this money? What's the process?
So for those specific line items, for example, in the DPW line item, they can spend that if it's specific to that one need. And that can be direct, I can approve that, the manager can approve that as well. So that would work the same way as with the capital surplus.
The capital fund, if something is needed, say either on the municipal side or school side, like Ms. Dixon was asking, is that an administrative? I mean, we have so much for capital in that fund. If you need something, does it have to come in front of the council, or is it administratively, that fund can be used for the town manager's approval?
If it's a wide open swath, kind of a piece, then it goes in front of the council.
Okay.
But as far as like those annotated line items, that's what I was.
All capital spending would have to
Yep.
be approved by the council. All of it, this is not at our discretion. It's
Right.
in there, it's at your discretion on how it goes, not
But
at us.
because those line items, like, again, like I was trying, maybe I just stated it incorrectly, or muddled it up. The line items you have approved, if you see those line items that go down, those line items have been approved by you all to be spent that way, and that is the only way I can spend those. Capital surplus line item, however, that would have to come in front of you for something a little special, but that's that revolving fund.
Okay, well, my only concern, and maybe in retrospect, it's not even a concern, but I see that your final recommendation is to move no more than $213,908.44 of excess budgeted health insurance accounts to the contingency account for.
So that's the contingency, that's not really the capital fund. I can cover that now if you would like, but I thought we were just speaking directly on.
No.
on capital.
My problem here is that the actual resolution to
I
do
just put them
this
up into three.
does not have an amount that's going
Okay.
to be transferred. The actual resolution that's in my package
Yeah, I could put a dollar amount in there that's in accordance with the letter.
does not have a dollar amount that's going to be transferred, so how does the council know what that dollar amount is?
Again, I crafted that directly from the other ones that were passed by previous council. I can obviously add in a dollar line item that's according to the letter. But I think I did it into as to the attachment, and the attachment annotates every single line item and every single dollar amount.
They're all listed, that is listed in Exhibit A, so those attachments are all listed there with the amounts listed, so. That's why instead of listing each and every line item that's gonna be moved, it was done and it was based on
And
the
the attachment
attachment.
would go with that resolution, so.
It goes with it. That's part of the
Through history,
resolution.
anybody could see exactly what dollar amount was passed.
Okay, well, okay, because I was just going to recommend that, even if it does pass, if the council does pass it, that I was going to ask the president not to put his signature on it until there was a amount.
That is,
But if it's.
yep, Exhibit A is the amounts that they're all listed.
Yeah, if it's going to go with the attachment, then that's fine. Okay, I understand now.
I have one last
So
question.
there will be the line items, for instance, and when we get to attachment item number 3, we've got 2 items in there, the annex fire code upgrade and the DHS generator. Even though they're going to be moved forward, they will be restricted to spending on those items until we decided. If we, at the, let's say there's a small balance on either of those in 3 years,
Correct.
we would be able to now put them either into a general, a general open fund.
capital surplus account,
Capital,
or if you
which is,
so chose to
so in other
say-
words, we've got restricted and unrestricted within the restricted capital improvement fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I find that to be
Now,
very,
Now,
operations.
and to go to what Mr. Cody's saying now, we've got items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and, I'm sorry, 5 items on there. Is the total dollar amounts that Mr. Cody was getting to in addition of all of those funds that
It's
are in this
listed
attachment?
On the second page, you'll see that how the capital fund would be set up and how it rolls directly to.
So I see one of them that says a total balance of 255,073, and then, but under number 5, I also see, actually, I'm sorry, those are
So
dormant
those are,
accounts.
those
So
are
number
dormant
5
accounts.
is
We're
not-
talking specifically on capital funds, which go through 1 through 4.
All right, 1 through 4. And number
is
5 and number
this
6
one.
are not for capital, they're
Correct.
they're dormant funds.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's where the confusion is on there, not knowing which one. So items
It's a
1,
lot
2,
of,
3, and
cleanup.
4 are all totaled in that last portion of it, which is 255,073.
Correct.
Okay. So that's the amount which is going to go into the capital surplus fund, if you will, capital improvement additional fund.
Okay, Councilwoman Dixon has a question?
I have one last question, John. Thank you for doing this. I greatly appreciate it. We've had many people come to us during public comment asking about capital improvement and funds, et cetera. Now, when you give your monthly report and you tell us the status of each department, is there some way, maybe not
This goes
monthly,
to
but
general
maybe at least twice a year, you could give us a status of this fund? Because people keep on asking about it, and I know that they would be interested in knowing how we're doing.
I think that that would be a great idea. I have no problem including this, and perhaps there's another type of capital through impact fees, which might be useful as well. But we'll talk about that, but this fund definitely I can add going forward on a quarterly basis. Not a problem.
I think that would be very reasonable, and I think it would respond to a lot of the comments that we get about what we're doing about capital improvements. Thank you.
We're also going to be coming with a proposal in the near future to, excess funds on the cell towers that are currently being generated, that we're going to have a proposal to move anything that isn't used in operating, also moved over into this account, which currently is about, I believe, somewhere in the ballpark of 150,000 or something that's in there right now. And then that generates additional each year that's not going to the schools or the town budget, so those funds we'd also like to put in there. We're also going to have further resolutions in reference to special revenue that comes in, such as a land lease or a sale of a property, which is something we've got further down the line in tonight's agenda, that those would also be earmarked to go into this capital improvement, rolling capital improvement account. So it's not just put into the operating budget and used for day-to-day, that we can actually start fixing some of the problems that we've got with our buildings and the other issues.
And we've had that discussion about, approving money strictly for the capital, because we've neglected it for so long with everything else we've had. So I'm glad we're thinking out of the box and trying to, put this together, so. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another one
Yes,
as well, too. Okay, which may be hitting on, I don't know, I'm on item number 6. I don't know if that's where you are. John, you mentioned in here on item number 6 that there's an attached journal entry which defines all the departments with over the budgeted health amount. I don't see that attachment. Okay, and I think we were on the same wavelength there,
Yeah,
looking at that one. And I
noticed
realize
that.
it's going to it's all going, that total amount of, what, 213, or no
Correct.
more than 213,908. That's what your thing, at this point, your calculations are showing that
Correct.
that was the amount.
I'll address that right
Over.
now. As far as that, I apologize that didn't make that. I
That's-
sincerely apologize. I've already created the entire journal entry moving according to funds. So what ended up happening in very short statement is that During the budget process going into this fiscal year, there seems to have been a little bit of excess that were, or quite significant of excess that were in those health insurance accounts throughout the entire town.
Over the town.
The entire town. So every single department had a little bit of, had excess funds. So essentially, I'm sweeping all those excess funds
Yep.
in order to go into contingency. The reason why I'm suggesting contingency is that at the end of this year, at the end of this week, in the next couple of weeks, we can clean up a lot of items that kind of have gone off to the wayside. So the way I like to think about it is that Coventry's, I wouldn't say finances, but Coventry has sort of an open wound. And when I came here, it's been Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid. Well, you need to clean that wound out sometimes in order to put new dressing on. Because if you don't clean it out, and we have the opportunity to clean it out, then you're just exacerbating the issue going forward.
Okay.
So that's why I'm suggesting into contingency.
Okay. So we've got, so this attachment A, in essence, we've got three resolutions.
And all it is
We're going
just-
to three different areas in the budget.
And all that journal entry is just showing all the various accounts, and I'll be sure to send that off
So
immediately.
this attachment will be attached to each of
Correct.
those
I will
resolutions.
be sure to bring that to you as
Great.
soon as possible.
All right,
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Debbie?
I just have one question.
Sure.
When the 200,000 for capital for the schools,
Yes.
when that goes over to the schools, how do we know it's going to go into capital? Because I know we've had previous discussions, if anything is allocated, they can spend it any way they want. I just want to make sure it
Right.
goes to capital.
Right, so because the way that this fund works, in order to spend that money, you have to see exactly what those invoices are for, and that it is for capital. So they can't get, I won't be able to see an invoice that's for school supplies, fuel, things of that nature. It would be specifically for,
So what
capital.
you're saying is, so if the school wants to say, I'm just saying, put on a new roof,
Right.
that bill would come to you, it would not go to their finance director, it's going to you? Is that?
No, it would still
it would still go to,
through them
through
first.
them, and then, yeah, but we see the payments, and I make sure that the journal entries are done, and then I'll be confirming
If-
with them according to those.
If we don't, if we didn't handle it correctly, what would happen is we would lose the possibility of state reimbursement, so we're gonna make sure that it's covered the way it needs to be, so we get reimbursement on that 200,000 for capital for them. We should get back, I believe the current is what, 46%? 45% or more coming back out of that 200, so we'll be looking at almost another $100,000 coming back out of the 200. So yes, it'll be handled what we have to, the way it has to be covered on the
I would
books.
think that it can't be a restricted fund here, and if it was transferred over there to become an unrestricted fund.
Correct.
Once it hits restricted fund status, that's how it remains until the council
Yeah,
changes
I
that.
guess I just wanted clarification on that. And then number 5, I just wanted these dormant accounts. We have those deficits.
Correct. Okay.
Can you explain?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll use the top one, 202, as a prime example. It's an easy one to understand. So that was done with the building that had moving expenses that were associated with it. So what you're seeing there, that $4,300 is moving expenses from a house. Well, when we applied for that to be reimbursed from the state, that was a non-reimbursable expense. So we got stuck with the bill. So that's been sitting there as a revenue that we should be able to collect that is uncollectible. There's no way I can get that money from the state. So that's essentially what every single one of these are, is that you spent the money and then we didn't collect. Or, for example, in some other ones, that we spent the money and we had the funds, but the journal entry was never made to pay off. So, for example, where am I not seeing it? So the dual charging station is a great example. The dual charging stations, the ones right out here in front,
Which was supposed to cost us 0. Apparently, this is 0?
that's revenue.
Okay, this
So-
is revenue.
This is revenue. So the cost of it, when they applied for the grant, was for private sector to do the work. And I've actually spoken with, man, I wish I could remember his name, with the state. I've spoken with the state, and he was explaining that the money is there. There's a certain amount that we can take and apply to the project. If we did it cheaper, then it's good for us. So we did it in-house, we did it cheaper than if we went out for it, and therefore that is actually receivable. I've actually spoken directly with them to make sure about that, because I don't want to see the colonel. I don't want to go see the colonel in his building. So,
What do you got against new jewelry?
so that's how that would work. So some of these other ones, we just didn't do the journal entry to move it over to an expense that we've already incurred, and then other ones that we have incurred, but we won't get reimbursed.
Now, how about Blizzard Nemo 2013?
2013, that was a reimbursable expense from federal disaster. The cost, I have it all in this stack somewhere, but it's essentially, the cleanup was highly expensive, and the costs were not, could not be reimbursed from all of it. So it was a certain amount that we could get back from it, and we exceeded that amount. That's just how that one worked.
Now, will these show up on the annual report on the deficit page?
Yes, so what we see here on the annual report, I brought it from, if you go to page 46 of it, you'll see a lot of these accounts that I'm trying to clean up. It's a full page on this, so this is me trying to close these down and consolidate it
So they don't end
down.
up on next year's in the same manner.
Correct, so you'll see these fall, they won't be on next year.
Okay, are there any other questions?
No, I just think, I agree with Gary, the amounts, because it's kind of, we seem to have a few different, we have one resolution.
Yeah, I would say, well, there's actually three
There's three
resolutions.
separate
Three different
Yes.
resolutions.
There's actually three, and I think we could probably put I would think the dollar amount in each of
Okay.
these items, the total dollar amount on those resolutions.
That's
Yeah.
not,
Yep, that's fine.
Clarification.
No problem.
Yep.
It's still on the attachment, so.
Yeah.
That's fine if you want them in the
Yep.
resolution, it's not a big deal. Any other questions? Thanks for explaining that the way you did.
very welcome.
With that being said, I guess the chair will entertain a motion.
Okay, well, I guess we'll do three motions. The first motion,
Well, we can put them all in one.
one at a time, yeah, because they're different, they're going to different funds. They're doing different funds, it'll be very quick. So, and that way we get the dollar amounts on them. So the first one, if I'm correct, John, is 255,073?
Correct.
Okay, so a motion to, a resolution to close now, is it the dormant special revenue accounts? Is that what this is,
Capital,
or no?
the capital accounts.
Which one?
The capital accounts, rolling
All right.
over of the capital accounts to the new
It's on
special.
the back side of
capital.
this one here. Okay, yeah, resolution allow the manager to transfer the funds to the different capital accounts with the restrictions and non-restrictions in the total amount of 255,073.
Okay, we have that motion for the capital. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay.
Motion carries.
All right, now
Okay,
the.
the chair will entertain a motion on the second
On-
dormant accounts.
On the second one, which the dormant accounts, which will go to the general fund, that's what,
That is correct, because these are expenses that it was incurred during operating, and that goes back to those, it's funding back the general fund that's already expended.
okay, so the total amount of those are $13,065.01. I make that motion to close the account and to add those funds into the general fund.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, the next motion.
Now, the last motion is for the recommendation to move no more than $213,908.44 of the excess budgeted health insurance accounts into the contingency account of the general fund.
Are you on page 34?
Well,
resolution?
on the resolution, yeah. Well, there was 32, 33, 34 is what that one would be, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, the special revenue accounts were 34. It looks like 33 is probably the cap. In all honesty, I'm not even reading those. I'm just reading whatever the resolution
we voted for
is.
what is on page 34 just now, the dormant.
Yes.
The dormant accounts would have been the one on 34, yeah, for
Now we have to go to
the
page
13.
33.
So 33, yeah, would be the one which is going to go to
No, that's a capital improvement.
yeah,
No,
I don't
32 is the one for the excess
32 is the one for the...
Page 32 is the one for the interim manager transfer funds, fiscal year closing for the balance accounts.
Total, all right, total amount.
Correct.
Okay, what was that, what was the
The
amount of
total
that?
amount being no more than $213,908.44.
Okay, all right, I reversed them. I was coming from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 and 6. Okay, so it's...
I tried to do separately to hopefully make it a
that's
little
okay.
easier, but
It's all going to get done.
backfired a little bit there.
It's all-
Have to make sure we get it correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're reading the resolution on page 33, correct?
32.
We already done that one, that was.
They're all done now.
This is Public Works.
Yeah, so that would be the, the capital, the total amount. What is it?
They're all three of them have been done and approved now.
Yes. Right, well, we made the motion, I made the motion on the 213.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Whichever one of these it goes on.
It's-
There's three
we have a
separate
motion.
resolutions.
Page
We have a
32.
second. Do we have, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. All right, they were a little
Okay.
confused in the way you set up in here, but I got the
That's
gist of it, yeah.
3 separate items next time, John.
Yeah. 32,
I will do that.
Yeah.
Confusing. I like the way we have one on, but backside of the pages is confusing in the package. But, okay, great. Madam Clerk, the next item on the
Thank you.
agenda, I guess would be item D3.
Bid information packet,
So this ends.
specifications,
One.
descriptions, and forms are for sealed bid sale by Town of Coventry of 1075 Main Street, Plat 46, lots 1 and 2. It's the current site of the Coventry Police Headquarters.
Mr. Manager, if you would give us a rundown on that, please?
Certainly. This is, I'm looking to be able to put out an invitation of bid on proposals for reuse of the old police station, old town hall, upon the police department exiting that building in the upcoming future. The resolution is also requesting that we do a full assessment valuation on it with an outside company, so we know the exact worth of that building and not basing it simply on our assumptions. So the resolution is 2 parts. One, to authorize up to $5,000 to get the proper assessment done, and the second part is to allow putting out this invitation to bid packet. This is not binding. We're able to reject any and all if we so choose, if they don't come in. I just thought it was more appropriate to go out and not just, again, we've got buildings that we've got sitting. I do not want to see another one just sit without being used, and the cost of maintaining that building, heating it, electric, and all the things that go on with an unused building. We have no use for that building at the present time, though I have heard from one group that they may be interested in using it, but at the time, I don't feel, and that's why it's up in front of the council, that that would be appropriate. I think we need to get rid of our excess buildings that are just costing us money, and that we can't honestly, we can't maintain. So that's what this is about, in trying to get proposals to get the most beneficial use, not only out of the building, but also for the town. I'm hoping to be able to analyze the proposals that'll bring more people into town, not just get the building going. I'd like to see it hopefully used in some way to bring bodies in, to start utilizing our restaurants during the day and lunchtime. And so we're looking for reuse that's going to be beneficial to secondary and tertiary.
I think it's a great idea, and we had a discussion too about future buildings. We're gonna, after the budget season's finished, we're gonna.
There's
sit down.
several more that-
I'd much rather see these buildings or this land that we're not utilizing, that we'll never use, to be put on our tax rolls and be used, so that's our next step. But this is a good idea, and does anybody have any questions, any comments on the council?
I was a little confused by the word reuse. Really, what we're doing is trying to sell this property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when you say reuse, it's like thinking about what, if someone bought the property, what they might use it for? Is that what you mean by reuse?
Right, because
Okay.
what I'm looking for proposals on the reuse of it, not just necessarily to sell it, because we want to look at what the whole proposal is. Not just somebody saying, I want to buy the building at X number of dollars. What do you want to do with the building? What are you looking to do? What's going to be the most beneficial to the town? Not just dumping a building that they pulled down, because I think none of us here would want to see that building go down. So that's why I'm saying, we've got to evaluate the whole process and what they want to do with it. So that's why I wrote it up the way we did. The actual invitation to bid was done by our interim planning director, thank you, Mr. Crossman, on the packet. I think he did a great job on it in a very short period of time. But, so that's why we're looking to do what we're doing.
The question I have is that there were a couple of department heads who mentioned that they might be interested in moving their department over to that building. So I just want to ask the question, do we feel secure enough that we have the appropriate amount of space for the departments and staff that we currently have without having to utilize that building?
The request came from people in the annex. The annex obviously has plenty of room in it. To move a total of 4 or 5 people down into that building would be an absolute waste of building space and a waste of expense to keep that whole building heated, running, and maintained throughout the year for 4 or 5 people. On top of moving those offices down to there would only make it more difficult for the citizens who need to utilize that along with the town hall services where they always work in conjunction, especially when it's involving the planning and zoning. There's a lot that has to be done back at the clerk's office and the tax assessors. So to move that building down there and put that much distance between the two would not be beneficial to the citizens either.
Yeah, I agree with that, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, 2 things. First thing is, are you going to give people an opportunity to bid on the cells that are downstairs to buy them? Because I do have my favorite. Other than that,
I actually thought it'd be a great boutique hotel with those cells as the rooms.
listen,
but-
I agree with you. They're not very comfortable to sleep on, though, not that you'd know. The other thing is that you, in the bid package, it says must be received by July 12th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I understand that, but are we sure that the building is going to be empty by then?
No,
Are we
this-
sure we're going to be in our new complex by
No,
then?
these dates, I should have mentioned that. These dates are just placeholders in the packet. We actually have, from the time this is posted, we have 28 days. I'm not looking to put this out the door for a couple of weeks. We want to also, just make sure that we're ready, and once we have,
So that date's subject to change?
the date is not the date. That is guaranteed, it's not the date.
Okay.
So it's going to be moved, and I should have brought that forth first.
Yeah, all set.
It definitely won't be ready by the new building by...
Yeah, thank you.
The bid invitation has a provision that we always insist on putting in our bid invitations, which is the town reserves the right to reject any and all bids for any reason, so.
Okay, are there any other questions?
No, I mean, that was my concern also, that the police would be out of there by September 1st. We haven't received anything from the building committee, and I was a little concerned.
Yeah, no,
I just
that-
want to make sure that,
Yep.
That was going to come this meeting, but it's going to come next. We had too much going on.
I mean, are they-
I thought the fact of me trying to evict the police department may not have been a good idea.
I want to make sure that.
Yeah, no, this is, like I said, these dates are just placeholders in here. They'll be adjusted up for once we actually advertise this. So it's all going to be determined based on, as they get ready to leave the
I
building.
mean, when, does the building committee have an idea when DHS and the police will be in the new building? Do they have a date yet?
They do not have a solid date that I'm aware of at this point. Colonel?
Okay, I just don't know if we should move that out now, this September 1st. Should we push it out to possibly the end of September, beginning of October? I just,
For what?
Well, none of these dates are...
These dates
Okay,
aren't,
so-
no, these dates are, we will adjust these
They're in
dates
flux.
once we know we have a
okay,
solid
so
date.
that's why I'm just.
Oh, yeah,
wanna
no,
make
no,
sure.
these are not solid dates
I don't
in
want to
here.
vote on something and then have these dates.
No, these dates are not solid. They will be adjusted based on the schedule of what's going to happen with the P date.
Just
Okay.
resolving to allow.
By the town manager.
The bid process to
Yep.
open by the town
Oh, yeah,
manager.
and also it's going to allow the town manager to go out and get
I need to get, I do want to get the appraisal done, so we know exactly what we're working with as well, so we have better numbers, so that's all part of it, so.
Certainly it's not going to be done until the police
Yeah.
department is
No,
ready. and-
we will not try to force to evict them.
All right.
Okay, and
And-
that being said, oh, yeah, you have another question?
Yep, under the bid procedures, under number 2, could we make sure that these bids that do come in are time-stamped with the timestamp from the town? Because we have bids that do come in, not
Joe-
time-stamped, and some are. So I'd like to have a little more consistency with that, and I'd like that in here, that these will be time-stamped.
They are all date stamped and time stamped. The only time that they are not is if they come in FedEx. We can't stamp the FedEx envelope, so somebody will handwrite it on. But that's the only time that they're not date and time stamped.
Okay, because I know in some of the, projects through DPW, they have come in and they were not time-stamped and there was nothing on it. So I just want to make sure that we actually have, if that's the case, then someone should from town sign it and have the date and the time that it comes in, and have
Okay.
that person sign it. That way we know,
Sure.
okay?
I think that's done anyway, so, all right.
It hasn't, that's why I'm requesting it. Can we add that into this, please? Into the wording?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that being said.
I've just got one.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I-
Go ahead.
Choose a comment.
But
Go ahead.
actually, it was just a kind of a question, whether for the town manager or the colonel. What year did the police department first locate in that building?
Well, it's been there 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I want to say in the 80s. We came from MacArthur Boulevard before that in the 80s.
Right.
And I think they were co-located with the town hall when they first started, somewhere in the 40s and 50s. They were just like a little office at the end of that building.
Right.
So it's that pretty unique.
So it was the town hall. I would love to get a timeline of the history of that to be posted somewhere around. It's a very historical
I know
building.
when Chief Shippey was the police chief, that's, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that's when we started using it as, or at least part of it, as the police station. And that was in the early to mid-'60s. That was in the early to mid-'60s. And I know, and I only know that because I went to Sunday school at the church next door, and part of it was being used as a police station at the time, and part of it was still being used for council meetings in the main room. They were still holding council meetings there, so that was, early to mid-'60s.
So you got really used to the area there, right? You know?
Yeah, very,
All
very.
right, with that being said, you have another statement?
No, I would like to make the motion for approval, but I would also like to excuse myself from this meeting, as I told you earlier.
Understood.
I have to go to work, and I wish I could stay for the remainder of the meeting, but I got to go earn a living, so I'm going to make the motion for approval, I'm going to state a vote, and then I'm going to apologize to the rest of the council members and the public that's still here, and then I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting.
I'll second that motion, Mr.
Okay, we have
President.
a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cody. All right, the next item on the agenda would be E1. Madam Clerk?
Application for peddler renewal, JoJo's Cupcakes LLC for 90-day peddler license. Joanne Diorio, 77 Isle Capri Road, cupcake
This
truck.
comes in front of us every 90 days. I'm very familiar with this. Does anybody have any questions, any comments from the council? All right, the chair will entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
You have a question? Okay, second, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, F1, please.
Awarding the following bids for DPW: earth materials, electrical services, emergency equipment rental services, heating and AC services, hot and cold patch, pest control services, pipes, casting and erosion control, plumbing services, and winter sand.
Okay, I think, Mr. Larson,
Yeah.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve, that we vote on all of them. However, if there's any questions from the council, we'll discuss them. But I think that we go through this every year, and the DPW director goes through all the bids. We've received them all in our package, had a chance to look at them, and obviously, if any of us have any questions, but I think there's a couple that.
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Larson
need
has
to, I need to remove the earth materials portion of it and the hot and cold patch portion. So if we could take the other items, we could vote on that, and then I'll leave you folks to those two.
Okay, so, Yeah, we can discuss right now before we vote, that's absolutely. But we're gonna do everything except earth materials and the hot and cold patch. So if there are any questions, like I said, I've had the opportunity, and we all have had the opportunity to look over the bids, and I'm sure that the DPW director and their department heads, whatever, the foreman have looked through everything and come up with the lowest bid and most confident bid. So it doesn't matter to me who we buy pipe for, I'm looking to save the money, whoever the cheapest is. So if there's any questions from the council, now's the time. Yeah. I don't have any questions. Yeah,
That'll be the next discussion.
All right, so the chair will entertain a motion to award all those bids with the exception of the earth materials and the hot and cold patch. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that
We
motion.
have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, the next thing I will look for, and this is Mr. Labassador will recuse himself, is earth materials and hot and cold patch. Is there any questions from the council? Yes.
Oops. Yeah, no, I'm just looking for where my question was. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, and I guess this is, I don't know who to direct it, to.
Direct it to DPW director, he was the one doing the bids.
Okay, well, I'm probably going to direct it to you. The secondary award for Pastiak Asphalt. I know when he did the 2017 paving, a lot of, I brought it to your attention, well, I brought it to Graham Waters' attention, Steve Delaney's attention, the town engineer at the time, by Bob Joyle, that we had that one-year warranty, because weeks after putting in the paving, some of the catch basins were already getting the cracking and starting to cave in with that. And some of the line striping, they did the primer, but they never put the line striping down. So I do have a problem with Pastiak Asphalt because of the issues with the paving project that he did in 2017. And D'Ambra Construction, it does say it's in Coventry. Where are they purchasing their asphalt? Because they don't have an asphalt plant at Center of New England. Where is the asphalt coming from?
We can ask them where they do have an asphalt plant. I haven't checked. They do have an asphalt plant.
It's not at Center of New England, it's in Johnston.
That's where their main office is, and that's their address. But they do have an address near Johnston landfill, by the central landfill.
Okay, so that's where the asphalt's coming from?
The asphalt's coming from, but their main office is in Coventry. Similarly, Pastiak Asphalt that you mentioned is not for a paving, but this is to buy the asphalt only. This is not for them to pave any projects. This is only to purchase, and it's their Coventry company, and they're the closest one to us also. Their prices would be a secondary. If D'Ambra was not available, if we're doing top mix asphalt, and we needed binder, and D'Ambra wasn't available, then we would have the option to go to Pastiak to get it so we don't stop the projects from going on. But it's just to buy the asphalt for us to do our projects, patching, catch basin cleaning, or our own projects, not for them to pave.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure what happened with that project, if it was the workmanship, if it was the asphalt itself, but
Ma'am, you may have had a discussion with...
I've had several discussions.
You may have had the discussions with Graham, but that wasn't brought to my attention. And when Bob Joyle was out there, myself, we didn't have any substantial issues with the workmanship of Pastiak during that process. There may have been some minor issues that they went back and corrected every time.
Okay, none of it was corrected, but that's okay.
Well, I believe it was, ma'am.
Okay. So there was, again, it's just to purchase the asphalt,
That's
not to have
correct.
them do any work.
That's correct.
I mean, and it makes feasible sense. I mean, if there was issues, then we certainly want to address them, but if that answers your question, is there any other kind of questions from the council? And will the chair entertain a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second? I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion denied. You'll have to...
Earth materials?
What's this?
We're going to do earth materials also? That was hot and cold patch.
Hot and cold patch. All right, we'll do the earth materials separately. That is not dealing with the asphalt, all right? I was gonna do them together. Was that your intention, with have them done together, or can we do the earth materials separate? Because I think I may have said we were gonna do them together, so,
We'll do the earth materials separate.
I'd like to do
Makes
earth,
sense.
yeah, okay. We'll do the earth materials separate then, all right?
I have a question.
You have a question?
So since this was not approved, what happens next with this?
Since what wasn't approved, ma'am?
The awarding of the hot patch?
It was just approved.
No, it wasn't.
No, it
denied.
wasn't.
Oh, it was tied.
It was
Yes, it
denied.
was denied.
We have a 2 to,
Okay. Then we don't buy asphalt. We don't do any patching in the town.
okay.
We have no outlet for us to do hot match, to do anything come July 1. We can't do any patching. No potholes are going to get filled. I can't buy asphalt.
Without a contract, we can't.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
that's
that's
why
what
I'm just asking.
So when the calls come in, folks, I'm going to direct them to you folks because we
No,
don't
I
have
mean,
it.
we had 3 people vote, and
It
Ms.
was
Bacon
2 to
voted
1
no.
vote.
It's no, so that's,
That's-
when the complaints come in, that's what it is. All right, we'll have to handle that. I mean, it's,
Thank you.
We will put out another bid request, I would assume is the proper way to do this again then. We have no other option but to do that, and Kevin will have to do it, get it started tomorrow if you could. Mr. Solicitor?
I think you can vote this again when Mr. Cody comes back. I don't, I
just
don't
makes no
think you have
sense
to,
that, you know,
I don't think you have to rebid.
I mean, we're gonna end up with
I
the same
really
bids.
don't.
It just came out.
They're the lowest qualified bidder.
I understand,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the fact that,
I agree with you, sir.
I don't think you need to rebid this.
Okay.
It's, I mean, quite frankly, it's just the logistics of the evening. Mr. Cody had to go to work. If he had voted, there's a fair chance that he might or might not have voted for it. But
I
I
mean, I just
think,
don't wanna leave it as we're not gonna be able to do any potholes because of,
well, until it carries, I mean, it's not,
We don't have it.
you don't have it,
We don't have
exactly.
it. We don't have it.
But I don't think that means you can't
so
reconsider it.
next month,
Well, the end of the month?
28th.
End of this month?
28th. Kevin, the current contract, when does it expire?
6:30. 6:30 of this year.
6:30, so we've got time to put this back in front then, because the 24th is the next meeting. So you can still purchase until then without an issue, so.
Yes.
okay, it is what it is. The earth materials are next. You had any more questions on that?
No, I just wanted to clarify,
Okay.
based on the vote, what happens next.
Okay,
Okay, so we did that.
now we're gonna go into the earth materials. Are there any questions
Okay.
with the earth
Thank you.
materials?
Thank you.
If there's no questions, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve, tell me which page it is, because there's a lot of pages here, just to make sure I get the right page.
Oh,
47,
47,
It's a 47?
47 of 166.
earth materials is the first one. All right. And that's for the stone and the sand and screen loom and so on, yeah.
Correct.
47.
Okay.
And that was for Richmond Sand and Gravel.
Correct. They were the lowest qualified bidder.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I didn't make the motion, I was going to read it.
Okay.
Okay, I make the motion that the town council affirms the award of a contract by the town manager pursuant to Article 10, Section 1023 of the Town Charter for the award of earth materials for the Department of Public Works to Richmond Sand and Stone.
Okay, we have that motion. Do we have a second? I'll make a second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2, Madam Clerk, F2, please.
Renewal of Rhode Island Resource Recovery Contract approved for the term of June 12, 2019 through June 30th, 2021.
Do you want to just go over that for us?
Yeah, this resolution is a 2-year contract that's done every 2 years biannually with Rhode Island Resource Recovery. This does not have any increase in the price. All the department heads from Public Works and from recycling coordinators worked with Resource Recovery for over 3 months to get the the contract in place. And this is the best thing we're going to do, is keeping it the same price for the next 2 years at $47 a ton.
That was 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, is there any questions on that?
And I just want to quote one other thing.
Yes.
If the town does not accept it by July 1, then we are charged the commercial rate, which is $87 a ton.
I just have one question.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's, I think you have a question, Ann?
When I read this, I mean, do we really, we don't have a choice, do we? I mean,
It's one landfill.
Only one place to get rid of it.
where else do we send this?
This is the only place we can, by law, state law, it's the only place we can bring it.
So, I mean, can you really negotiate with them to get prices?
The entire state is one, it's not ours, this is the entire state. Everybody, all the municipalities have the one contract.
And you have they all have $47 a
All
ton?
$47 per ton, yes.
Okay. So
But you
the-
did have a negotiation amongst all
Oh,
the
yeah.
towns, the legal, they didn't get involved, or was it all the cities and towns?
All the cities and towns had multiple meetings with Resource Recovery to make sure that it was all in the best interest of the town.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, you have.
Thank you for the clarification. Wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, no, Nick has a question or a comment.
It wasn't in the packet, and I don't think it's a, on page 117 of 166, at the very bottom, it refers to an attachment 2. I don't think it's material for tonight. I was just curious what the it has something to do with our cap for yard and
Correct.
leaf waste, which you are always worried about exceeding, so I thought I'd
Yes.
give you your moment of glory and just ask a question about it.
Yeah, there are a couple of attachments, I'm sorry they didn't make it into here for some reason. I thought it was part of a diversion report that was attached to this.
It's the same as
The Same as it has been, we are capped at a certain amount based on our population. Once we reach that cap, it's zero to dispose of yard waste up to that point. After that, it costs us $25 a ton. We are historically about 400 to 500 tons over our cap every year. So it cost us in the vicinity of $50,000 by the time we end up transporting it and collecting it and disposing of it.
Okay, are there any questions else from the council? Have you have a question?
I just, Kevin, again, I'm not sure if it's directed towards you. If the budget fails on Thursday, you said that there would be no more yard waste pickup. Is that going to be one of the budget cuts?
Once again, and that's up to the town council and the town manager to make the final decision. When the town manager came to me and said, if the budget fails and I have to cut $600,000 additional from your department, where would those be? So in order for us to make the changes, losing personnel, those personnel changes, which would be a reduction in personnel in the sanitation department, that had to be with yard waste, it had to be with bulk pickups, it had to be with our facilities department, with cutting one custodian and cutting one building maintenance person.
So I guess my question is, if we enter into this contract, the budget fails, and there is no more leaf and yard waste pickup, the transfer station's closed, this contract will be significantly different, correct?
No, this is for the municipal,
Okay.
this is for municipal solid waste contract, and that's for our trucks that collect every day.
Okay, so-
For recycling and trash. So this has nothing to do with, we take the money out of our account for yard waste disposal when we go over.
Okay.
If we didn't go over, we wouldn't have to. But again, the more that we are able to recycle and
Okay.
include a diversion rate like the furniture bank, that helps us to be able to get to that point.
Okay, I just didn't know if you needed us to table this till the 24th, just...
No, there's nothing
Okay,
to table, there's
I-
nothing to change.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
I'm sorry, one other question. It does mention in here, I can't find it right at the moment, but the Roger Williams, when they came before us regarding the municipal compost facility, there is something in here about possibly looking into a municipal compost facility.
That's
When-
part of the diversion plan. That was initially, when we were looking at that began the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Obviously, nothing has taken place from there, so there's no dollars amount that's put into that.
I know, I'm just asking, my question to you is, when is that final report from Roger Williams? You said I know, because they came before us.
Yes.
Do you know when we'll be getting that
I
final
will
report?
find that out. I haven't gotten that from them.
Okay.
Before they leave, I should try to get that from them.
Okay,
But we hadn't had any further action on that.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with that being said, if there's no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this Rhode Island Resource Recovery contract.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin. The next item on the agenda would be,
The appointment.
F4. Madam Clerk.
Appointing one candidate to the Pawtuxet River Authority Committee.
Is John Donovan here? Yes, he is. you'd come up.
Jack,
Oh,
oh, yeah,
actually,
there's
we
Jack.
should make a vote on it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that always helps, okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to appoint John Donovan to another term on the Pawtuxet River Authority.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Donovan, if you come up, please. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will be true and faithful unto this state and support the laws and constitution thereof and the Constitution of the United States of America, and that you will well and truly execute the office of a member of the Pawtuxet River Authority, for which you have been appointed in Coventry, Rhode Island, for the term ensuing until another be engaged in your place, or until you be legally discharged therefrom, so help you God. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. And wait over here.
Thanks again, Jack.
This happens to be John's, I believe, fourth term working hard on this Pawtuxet River Authority. We really appreciate his effort and his hard work. Okay, Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda would be F5, please.
Appointing 2 candidates to the Zoning Board of Review.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion.
Okay, we're going to have to take one at a time.
Okay, I entertain a motion for the full member position.
I'll move that Keith Cloutier be appointed to the full member 5-year term, office expiring May 31st, 2024, of the Zoning Board of Review.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Is Keith happen to be here? Okay, Madam Clerk, you'll notify him, and he'll have to swear in whenever he can make it. Okay, the next is an alternate position, the term expiring in May 31st, 2024. Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we appoint Ed Ionati as an alternate member with a term expiring May 31st, 2024, to the Zoning Board of Review.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Ionati and Mr. Cloutier, and you'll notify them when at their convenience to come in and get sworn in. Okay, the next, G1, next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Introduction and first reading of amendment to Coventry Code, Chapter 204, Solid Waste Ordinance.
Welcome back. Can you give us a rundown on this ordinance was proposed by Councilman Cody, and he's not here to talk about it, so if you would be so kind as to fill everybody in.
Yes, thank you very much. This amendment being offered this evening is basically to update our amendment for the solid waste ordinance. It dates back 20 to 25 years. That's outdated in many places. We're cleaning up some definitions to the current terms, eliminating items like incineration and landfilling in Coventry, which are no longer allowed through state law and regulations. One of the purposes of this amendment is to include damages for blatant violations and refusal to comply with town and state laws and regulations. All of these changes have undergone a 2-year review by this department, the police department, the municipal court, and the solicitor's office, resulting in this document. Part of the items here clarify the yard waste collection criteria and compliance, identifies the collection containers for trash and recycling, times of collection, placement of the containers, especially with our new automated system, and identifies the bulky waste stream, limits the size, white goods, mattress and box springs, and e-waste. If you read through the ordinance, there is substantial changes as far as trying to clarify what we have and giving us some teeth to be able to finally enforce the blatant people that just tell us basically to, you know where to go to if they don't want to comply with the state law of mandatory recycling, and we have no way of enforcing that. This allows us an opportunity to go through a process of notification, several notifications, and if those notifications don't happen, then we go to bring them in for an interview, and if not, then we start fining them, escalating fine based upon what's acceptable by the municipal court. And it's the only way we can comply, because otherwise we're getting charged upwards of sometimes $700 for rejected loads at the recycling facility because of people putting things into the recycling container that are not allowed, and every taxpayer is paying for that just because of people blatantly not wanting to comply. We had a gentleman today, I've never recycled my entire life since I've been here, and we finally stopped his trash collection until he complies. We don't legally have that route to do that, but we went out there, met with him, gave him some education. He's now agreeing to comply and start recycling. But those are the type of things that we have to continue the work through our recycling coordinator to educate people to get this so we can continue. I think you'll find in a diversion rate of the prior resolution that was here for the resource recovery, our efforts have been able to divert from the waste stream upwards of nearly $500,000 through our efforts through the recycling and through the transfer station to save the taxpayers money in the last year, and that's from resource recovery's data, not from ours. So we're asking this is the first reading, and there's no action this evening, asking you to look at it, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact town manager, direct them to me as far as what we can clarify. But like I said, we've gone through a 2-year process of getting this to this point and making sure we had everybody on board, all the stakeholders are on board with how this is happening.
Okay, are there any questions from anybody from the council? I know we had a chance to look at it a little bit, but we're just this first reading only. Okay.
Mr. McGee, I did read through this document, and I was happy to see the addition of fines, the clarification of definitions, the expansion of some of the areas, and I think it was well done and well-deserved and a good timing for this. Also, when I attended the opening of the furniture bank, I got a chance to meet your dispatcher and your recycling coordinator, and I was so happy to see the passion and enthusiasm they have for recycling. They're very good additions in your department, and I think that they will help with this ordinance. It will help make their job a little easier.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, if there are no other questions.
I just have one other question. This did come before council back on February 13th, 2017. And the version we have, I did compare to what is in front of us today. What is in front of us today, there are many sections that have been removed completely.
Correct.
But I'd like to see the entire ordinance, red line version, any additions, because I've gone line by line.
We provided the red lines.
No, I mean.
I'm sorry,
if you-
I provided the red line
Okay.
copy, so I have a copy for you, if
So
you'd like.
okay, so I guess there's an entire section that's been removed. I mean, we can go if you want. I don't mind going line by line. The entire management plan, that's been removed. We have pages, this is the original, and it's page 14 on here. I mean, I don't know because they've removed.
What's just above it or below it? So we can find it.
Sure. That would be administration and enforcement. And on here,
Excuse me, Mrs. Bacon, is that the February 2000?
the 17th, yes.
Are you
Yes.
looking at the February 2013 edition?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
which
That
we don't have.
that is a very complete
Okay.
packet. It's completely redlined. They have all the additions. What we have in front of us, a lot is, I mean, we don't have the permits for management and activities and facilities. That's going to be
Correct.
completely.
And as I indicated, at our meeting back in 2 years ago on 17, there was some discussion, and that's when we brought
Well,
all
we
the
tabled
stakeholders.
this.
Right, and that's when we
Because
brought.
we were waiting, actually, I'm sorry, but I mean, it was tabled, one of the reasons it was tabled,
Correct.
we were waiting for the management plan that,
It went into more detail than that, and we went into meeting with all the stakeholders and with the solicitor, and we found out that many of those items that you're talking about don't need to be in there because they are outdated and not part of state law.
And that's fine, but when we're looking at a document, you need a complete document, the complete ordinance. We have some items that you've added in here, some you've deleted. It's actually a very misleading document when you print out the entire ordinance and you go through it. There are a lot of sections that are missing.
What we presented is what the proposed ordinance would be. I just gave you the red line copy that was presented. I don't know why it was included, but that's the red line copy of the ordinance. We worked with that.
This is the new ordinance that you have requested.
Yes.
The old one, this is the new one.
Correct.
But I mean, he's removing a management plan in here. This is like
That
an
has never been in place.
accountability.
That's never been in place, man.
I know, because I don't, and we asked for a copy of it. I mean,
We
this
don't
has
have
been, we've had an
There
ordinance.
has never been a management plan set up in this, from this ordinance.
So that means
For
we were
year-
never following the ordinance
From
then.
years ago, it's antiquated.
Well, there's a lot in here we haven't been following.
Once again, with all the reviews from all the departments and the stakeholders.
Advisory board was removed.
Correct.
But don't you think we should see what's in here? Because we may want to actually discuss some of these items.
Once again, if you have that red line copy, it has all those parts in there, right, that I just gave you today.
Well, I mean, you just gave it to me right
Once
now.
again,
I'm
it
going
was
through
included, it was included. I don't know why you didn't get it, but we provided the red line
This is the new
copy.
ordinance that we're looking at. You have a question, Mr. Solicitor.
Just for clarification, and I guess since this is posted on the, the website, it might be helpful to the public. It's an attachment, so. What is in red that is not crossed out, are those that's the new language that you're adding?
Correct.
And the red language that you're crossing out is the old language that was in the ordinance that is being removed. Is that right?
That's correct. And it's, like I
All
said,
right.
it's antiquated
So-
things that have never been utilized.
I don't need a justification for it. I just, because a lot of people watch us online or they view it later, and they may want to look at this online as well. And I think that would be helpful to them to know.
But I was trying to explain that it's
Yeah, the
very
original
confusing.
is online.
Go back to,
I know, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm-
suppose we do want to discuss a management plan. We can't do that
All right,
because
but
it's
I-
not in our document right now.
My
Do you
only
know what I'm
suggestion-
saying? I mean,
yeah,
because
I
the council
understand.
is supposed to have a discussion on it. How can we have a discussion
We're
when?
discussing this
I-
new ordinance that's presented to us. That's what we're
I-
discussing.
I wouldn't go back to the February 2017 proposal.
It's not a proposal, it's the actual ordinance, and it was red line. I mean, we have an ordinance in front of us that we're supposed to be updating right now.
But the February 2017 proposal was never adopted.
Correct.
No, I know that,
And
but what I'm saying is, Nick, there's in here a management plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that has everything to do about accountability. That
And
has
is it-
been completely.
is it crossed out?
Yeah, and here, it's not even in here. You can't find it. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't you think we should have a red line version?
I thought
You
we
cross
just
everything
clarified
out.
that we did. So, I just want to understand, Councilwoman Bacon, your concern is that there are sections that have been
My-
deleted that are not shown as red cross out.
Yes,
All right, well, I'll
Yes.
check into that.
yes.
That's a
That was
fair
on an
question.
ordinance that wasn't adopted, is that correct?
Yeah, but that wouldn't, that's why I think you should just ignore what was
But
presented
typically, I mean,
in
we looked
February
at the entire
2017
ordinance.
because the town council never acted on that.
No,
We never did anything.
Nick, it's
Yeah.
the original ordinance. When you're giving an entire ordinance, someone has picked through this and has just created a whole new ordinance. What I'm saying is, let's have the entire ordinance in front of us, redline what you want to remove, add what you want to add in there.
That's what
And
this is.
No, it's not.
That's what
Not-
Well, that's what
this- This is not what it is.
I think
It-
she's asking someone to check. And I said I would do it. I don't mind doing it.
I mean, because if you go
it's a fair
online right
question.
now,
And once again,
okay.
the ordinance that's in place right now, 204, is on the website.
Yes, it is.
And that's complete to what the original one that's in place.
Exactly, that's.
Correct.
Yes.
This is the proposed changes, the amendment that we're looking to do.
But what I'm
And what I
ask-
just handed to you is the red line that should have been included in your package, but you have that now in your possession.
Okay, I know, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
What we have in here and what the ordinance actually is, we're talking two different documents.
Yeah, well, I'm not really talking about the old one, I'm talking about the new one.
I know,
This is
but
what we're
we
bringing
need
it-
to
we're
look
bringing
at
it up to
the.
date.
Exactly, but we need to see what's been redlined out and what's been added in. I mean,
Okay.
that's how, I mean, honestly, that's,
All right, we
I
got,
can say something.
let me just say something. We got your point. This is a first reading. If there's questions, you have an opportunity to look it over. We can have more questions. There's no decisions, no vote being made tonight. This is the new ordinance that's proposed. Look it over. If there's something you don't agree with, we have another discussion, another meeting. We'll answer questions. I'm sure that Nick will look into it. Yeah. And Kevin will answer any questions you have concerning it. Any of us have. You have a question, do you?
I just have one question. Since the 2013 one was not adopted, 2017 was not adopted, then what is the one that you want redlined? I mean, I understand your question.
what's in
so-
2017, what was added is in here. It's the deletions in here, what was redlined out, the actual red line, that has not shown up in here. Don't you want to see what they have removed?
But that was not adopted. I
No,
want-
this is, what was redlined out is our current ordinance right now.
And that's dated what? The current ordinance is dated what?
It's not a current ordinance.
No, but the one that we currently have is
We
dated
don't
what?
have a current ordinance.
Yes, we do
Oh, you
have,
don't
see,
have-
we have a current ordinance.
Yes.
204 is in there, but it's outdated.
Okay.
What we presented on 2017 should be thrown right out because it was never adopted. We went back to the drawing boards after meeting with all the stakeholders on what they thought was the best and with the solicitor thinking what didn't need to be in there. We had many meetings at his I did with his office, trying to identify items he said were just redundancies, just take it right out of there, which we did.
We did do that.
And that's-
That is a fact. It was filled with redundancies,
If
which
there's-
we eliminated the redundancies on things like enforcement and other things. So you are going to see some major strikeouts, but
I know, and that's what we should see is,
That's what
you
she
don't
wants to
see
see.
that in here. You don't see the strikeouts.
but
Okay.
He's going to check that.
I'm going to check
and
it
the
out,
bone of
but I do
contention
see
and
some
the
things
confusion.
being eliminated,
So-
which I like, but I'm just the solicitor. So you vote, so you get the final say.
All right, so
Right.
we'll have a copy of that, whether you have that copy, we'll answer any questions they have.
We have two copies,
Yes.
one of the original and then one.
And you submitted that copy,
Once again, a copy of what I just
we
gave to
will
Mrs.
get a
Bacon.
copy
I'll
of
get
it next
another
time
one.
around. And like I said, this is just a first reading, so there's no action taken on it tonight. So we'll be able to answer any questions in the second reading, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment? Just name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Richard Bacon, 16 Catalpa Way. Hello, Richard Bacon, 16 Catalpa Way. So generally I watch online, and I'm concerned that the budget's going to be voted down again. Because people don't trust you, okay? You're trying to talk about, she's asking questions, right? And you're just kind of brushing them off like, no, this is the current ordinance, this is the current ordinance, instead of following the procedures. The head of DPW's up here. Mr. Cody has to leave, okay? So my town council person votes down, the awarding of that contract. Instead of stepping back and having the DPW director say, oh, I have to rebid this, what happens? I have no coal patch. Nobody else in the state or in the tri-state area here has coal patch. And you back them up completely. Oh, we can't coal patch. So when we have complaints come in, we know we're going to send them. Everything's alarmist. When you don't get your way, he doesn't get his way, and you don't back him up, it's alarmist. We're not going to pass the budget. Oh, we can't pick up garbage. It happens all the time. Just do what you're supposed to do. Mr. Cody ran this town for a number of years, and he did it well because he knew the procedures. It's going to happen, guys. People don't trust you. You heard it in that meeting. People don't want to, every time you have a budget, they guys start here and you work your way down. I was trying not to get aggravated about the budget. I didn't even talk during any of the meetings because I was so aggravated. Every year it's 4%, and you guys started like 6%, and you try and whittle it down till just below 4%, and you try and shove it down people's throats, and then people vote it down. And then you got to go back and do a bunch of work, right? And what happens is nobody believes that there's the skin of your teeth ability to run the town on that kind of money, right? And then today, you see the example of that. This is the guy I want. Well, Mr. Cody's not here, so it gets voted down. Instead of going back and say, what do we do? Okay, well, we probably have to rebid it. Oh, I can't cold patch. Oh my God, come July 1st, I can't do it, goddamn, I can't do a thing. And that's what makes people mad. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak? Public comment?
Janice Stenson, 670 Naughty Oak Road. Good evening, all. I'd like to comment regarding the bidding process and the FedEx bids received. Excuse me. I do agree with Councilwoman Bacon. A sealed bid should be required to be in its own envelope. If it is sent by FedEx, that sealed envelope should be inside that FedEx packaging. There are many reasons any FedEx packaging should be addressed immediately, including safety reasons. But in this instance, to protect necessary and unwavering consistency of a sealed bid process, all bids should be handled in the same manner, time-stamped directly on the sealed envelope with no exceptions. And then secondly, I agree wholeheartedly with everything the gentleman just said. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to speak? Just name and address for the record, please.
Carol Smith, 7 Cynthia Drive. I'm not angry or whatever, but when she said no, and you turned around and said, we need to wait for that gentleman, if they had said yes, and that gentleman decided that his vote would be no, along with hers, then what would have happened? It's always like we counter. Like, it's okay to say yes with the full assessment, but one person says no, and there's not the person sitting there, then we got to recount it. And I agree with them. Why not just go out for another bid? I know it's not easy. I know it's hard to run a town, but that's what the people are looking for, that it's not just, well, two of them said yes, two of them said no, and she declined, and then you changed it in the midst of us. Like, that's what voting is about. That's why people make those decisions.
My job is to give them the rules, and I gave the rule.
So what is the rules?
The rule is that they can reconsider it. That's the rule.
Okay, they can reconsider it.
Yes, they can.
So if they declined it, they can reconsider it another time, the next time?
Yes, they can. If a majority wants to take it up and reconsider it, they can.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the rule.
I appreciate the understanding of how that works.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who wants to have public comment?
How we doing? Luke Murray, 121 Hill Farm Camp Road. I'm going to strike a little different tone. I want to thank you for taking on the interest rate discussion tonight. I know it's difficult. As some of you know, I did testify at the State House, and I was a little critical of council on this, and I'll be honest in that. But it was in the interest of fairness, what I thought was fair. And so I fight for what I think is fair, and so I testified on behalf. One of the things I would make a suggestion is you may consider making a resolution to codify it in the statute. And the reason I say that is Warwick's is codified in the statute and state legislation. And that also keeps a buffer from future councils who decide to boost the interest rate or change our local ordinance. So you may want to consider that. I know that our legislators were looking for that. It is poised to pass, and I know that there is the inclination to not have the state step on local toes, but it may be in this situation warranted for the buffering of our community. The other thing I was going to say is on the, I also want to thank you for the looking forward at the sale of the older police station, soon to be older police station. One thing based on my experience, as you know, I work for the city of Warwick, and I've done some appraisals and tried to displace buildings, including the Rhodes School, which is recently sold, as well as the Aldrich School, which I'm working on, is when you do that appraisal, not only look at the highest and best use, but look at multiple uses for that reuse. So one of our mistakes that we made was we looked at Aldrich, let's say, as highest and best use as a school, and the appraisal came back as $2.3 million. Well, the truth is that that has a limited capacity to go out to market for that use. So if the council is sort of duped into thinking that that's the building value. And the truth is it's worth a lot less. So you may want to look at a number of uses when you meet with that appraiser going in to at least, tell them, hey, we're looking at maybe an office use a restaurant use, however you envision working with the planning department, how you want to reuse that building. So trying to be productive there. I hope tonight's work sets a little bit of a different tone. I know you're trying to move forward, and that, showing an example that you are listening, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has a public comment? See none, hear none, the motion to adjourn is in order. We have a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Second, all in favor? Aye. Aye, all opposed? Please adjourn, thank you, folks.